I'm here today to talk about Brexit. Now, I don't do that much these days. As some of you will know, I had a blog for a very long time, a Substack, called This Week in Brexitland, which I did every week. I did it every week for about 3 years. And it was fun. It was good. I really enjoyed it at first. But I gradually ran out of things to say about Brexit. Because there's only so much you can say about Brexit, is what I discovered. I should have said all the things that I really wanted to say, and then that was it. And I had to make a choice of carrying on the Substack as if it was about Brexit when it wasn't, or change it, which is what I did, to the neoliberal centrist ad. And many of you have stayed, and some of you have come on board, and have subscribed to the Substack ever since, and some of you left. Well, I'm saying some of you, probably it isn't you because you're probably not watching. I'm guessing. But anyway, if you are, hi. But today I am actually decided to do something on Brexit. And part of it, I will just hold my hand up and admit, is I don't really have anything else to say about politics at the moment. It's all a bit of a mess to me, really. We seem to be in a cycle whereby Reform gets somebody to defect from some other party, usually the Tories. And they do a big announcement and everybody says, this doesn't mean anything. And then Labour announce another terrible policy, or they announce they're not going to do something, or there's some other bad news about the economy, and the Labour government responds very poorly to it. They either say nothing, or they say something lame, and we all go, what's going on here? And then maybe the Lib Dems do another stunt, and the Greens have some rolling psycho horror show, shit show thing that they just keep perpetuating. And then you have the Corbyn whatever, and that just rolls along, the Your Party thing. And then another poll comes out. Oh, sorry, I didn't even mention. Of course, it's so forgettable I didn't even mention it. Kemi Badenoch does another really, really uninspiring and insipid video about something really uninspiring and insipid. And then another poll comes out that has Reform on like 32%. The Tories on like 15 and Labour on 21 or whatever. And everybody goes, oh, this will blow over. It'll all be fine. There's no way Reform are going to be able to carry this off in a general election now, are they? And on it goes. So I thought instead of trying to eke something out of that blood from a stone there, I thought I would, ask this very simple question. Because I've been looking at these polls. They come out every so often. There was a poll that came out very recently about how 52% of people would vote to rejoin the EU, and something like 29%. Some of you will know the exact number. 29% would vote to remain out, and the rest are undecided. So obviously, if you take the undecideds out, what you get is about 64% saying they would vote to rejoin the EU, and 36% saying they would choose to stay out. But here's the thing. So people can say it's just a poll. Yes, it is. People can say, well, if we actually had another referendum, you'd have all sorts of stuff and people would change. And yes, they would. And I'm sure that would probably narrow, without question. I have no doubt that would narrow, probably really significantly, actually, which is why I'd be nervous about a referendum on Rejoin anytime in the very near future. And of course, the Stay Out campaign would be well-funded, well-structured, would have very competent people running it, and the Rejoin campaign would be a complete circus, shit show, horror show, nightmare, with some of the most incompetent people in British politics at the helm of it, almost certainly, and that would affect things. But nonetheless, we are where we are, where 64% of people, when you take out the undecideds, saying that they would want to rejoin. And when you do the crosstabs on it, it's amazing. If you get into like Labour people, so Labour voters, I don't forget about activists or the party members. If you get into people who say, I will vote Labour, right? The rejoin numbers are insane. They're like 80, 85%. So this is of the current crop of people who are voting Labour, right? And yet, it's completely off the table with this government. So I wanted to ask, why isn't Starmer and his government supporting rejoining the EU? And okay, maybe you can say, okay, they don't want a referendum now. I can get that. That's for various reasons. But why wouldn't they go into the next election promising it, saying, actually, if we get reelected, we will have a referendum and we will advocate to rejoin the EU. We will campaign to rejoin the EU. And you can say, well, we're years away and maybe they will. The thing is, it really doesn't feel like it, does it? And it's really difficult to see them doing it. And I think one of the problems is I think they might go into the next election thinking that they can keep the coalition that they built for the 2024 election together and win again on relatively the same coalition, the same sorts of people in the same sorts of places. And I don't think they can. I actually think that ship has sailed. They cannot do it. There's a whole bunch of their seats they're going to lose next time to reform. I think they really need to look at how can they get seats that they didn't win last time, or how can they hold certain seats in the face of Corbyn and the Greens and Lib Dems and a rising vibe of people who are put off by Starmer for lots of reasons. Lots of his positions on, say, immigration or taxation or Israel, because he's never, ever, ever going to be pro-Palestine enough for a certain group of people. So how does he hold on to enough of those people in a way that won't screw him up? You know, in a way that won't involve him taxing people he doesn't want to, or having a ruinous economic policy that's not going to work, or well, just having to do things that would be negative for him in government. And it just seems to me like the bottom of the pile is, well, next time we'll have a referendum and we'll rejoin the EU. Part of it is he can say at the end of this parliament, like, he tried with Brexit, he really gave it a go. They tried everything they could to sort of make things better with the UK outside of the EU, but it just didn't work. Couldn't work. Tried the best, didn't work. And actually, we need to rejoin in order for all the problems to be solved. I think a certain group of people would buy that. And I'm saying that off the back of the polling, right? You can have these polls again and again and again and again, and people can just say, oh, it's just polling, and it's what people say. And if you told them we had to take the euro, then all that would change. I mean, possibly, but it does strike me that there is a receptive audience, a receptive electoral audience for the idea of rejoining the EU that no one's really capitalizing on. And I know people will jump in here and say, oh, well, we have these rejoin the EU parties and they do incredibly badly and they don't do anything. I mean, that's just, sorry, nonsense. Okay? People don't really vote for minority parties that don't really have any support or aren't in the media and no one thinks can win. That's how elections work. It's one of the reasons you can look back at the way UKIP would be. They would do horrendously badly in things like by-elections for a very, very long time. Is that because there was no one in the country who was in any way Eurosceptic? Of course not. There was actually a huge amount of people. But they felt like, well, okay, at the end of the day, sure, I'd like to leave the EU, but it's probably not going to really happen, is it? Not realistically. And am I going to throw my vote away on this party that isn't going to win just to make a protest vote about how we may or may not leave the EU? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to put it top of the pile. What I'm going to do is I'm going to vote Tory because I don't want Labour, or I don't want the Lib Dems, or whatever. And that's what all those people did. But if Labour do it, that's different. Because if people are thinking, well, I don't want to reform government, and what are Labour offering that's different? And if what they're offering that's different is a route to rejoin the EU, I think like a lot of young people particularly would be attracted to that. I think a lot of older people too, frankly. I think actually it would really be an offer that would set them apart. It would really screw the Lib Dems too, and the Corbyn thing. Because what's Corbyn going to do? Is Corbyn going to say, well, if I win? He's not going to say that. He's just going to say his normal drecky Marxist crap, right? He's not going to say, he doesn't want to get into the EU thing. And if Labour cut him off at that, then that's a thing to fight Corbyn with and actually get a lot of those votes where he needs them still. Because I think Labour really need to worry at this point. Genuinely. I think they will lose a huge amount of voters, probably to Reform in loads of different places. They'll probably lose a lot of voters to the Lib Dems, just simply off the back of like, well, I don't want Reform to win. But I don't really want Labour to. I'm really disappointed by Labour, and Labour didn't really give me what I wanted. And I think Reform are a bit evil, but they'll probably lower my taxes. So yeah, but I can't vote Reform, so I'll vote Lib Dem. That's how a lot of people are going to roll next time, unless things change, by the way. But if you suddenly give these people, these sort of liberally people who are, but they're a bit centre right on the economy, they don't really want high taxes and stuff. But if you say to them, look, we're going to make everything better, and we're going to rejoin the EU. I think you get a lot of them. I really, really do. I genuinely, I'm not just saying this as some sort of like deluded rejoiner. This is a fantasy. I get why he's not going to do it anytime soon. And if I was working for Starmer, I would say, well, obviously don't call a referendum in this election. That would be stupid. In this parliament. Before the election, I mean. But offer it at the next election. I genuinely think it's a thing that Labour, Starmer should do. I think it's the one way that they could stave off Reform winning the next election. I do. I just do. And it makes life easier. Like if he needs to form a government with the Lib Dems, well, that makes life easy, doesn't it? Because now you got two parties. They both want this to rejoin the EU. Again, it just offers him a narrative. It offers him a way to get votes. The thing is, I don't think he's going to do it. I would be absolutely stunned if Starmer does that. If Starmer comes out a year away from the general election, sometime in 2028, he says, look, if we win the next election, because we feel like we need to win the election on this basis, right? Because he promised last time, that whole thing is he would eat his own leg off if they ever even thought about rejoining the single market, all that crap. So he'd probably, and I think he's probably right on this, he would need a new mandate. He would need to win another general election, standing on the premise that there would be a referendum on the EU if they won, and he would campaign to rejoin. I think he would need to win an election having said that. But he could, but he's not going to. I know I keep... the logic's there, but I just don't think Starmer's going to do it, because I think Starmer is stubborn. I think they will insist that they can win 2029 in the same exact way that they won 2024, essentially getting the same people in the same places to turn out and do the same thing, on the basis that they're going to have a track record of some kind that's going to attract people, and that's going to be enough, and that will get them over the line, and that's going to be the thing, and they'll be able to say, do you want me or Nigel Farage? But the point is, why, if you're saying me or Nigel Farage, if you're not offering something big that's very un-Farage-y, right? And like, what's the least Farage thing you can think of in your whole life is, I'm going to have another referendum on the EU, and we're going to rejoin. And they'll just be terrified. They'll be terrified of Farage saying a whole bunch of stuff, which Farage, he won't even say that much. Farage doesn't want to talk about Brexit. He really, really doesn't. Have you noticed? He never does. He never really talks about it. Why? Because it hasn't gone very well. He even knows it, because the times he has to bring up Brexit, he says, well, it's been a bit of a failure or whatever, and then he moves the topic on. He'd like to keep in people's minds that if he was Prime Minister, or a reform government, someone of his ilk were Prime Minister, not these fake, right-wingers, the Tories or whoever, if he was in charge, or someone of his ilk was in charge, then Brexit would be going brilliantly. They would have got a great deal. Everything would be amazing. So, that's part of the Farage deal, but he doesn't want to get into specifics about that. Well, let's be honest. So, Labour shouldn't be scared on that front, but they will be. I know they will be, because they'll keep thinking that they can win. If we go with we're going to have a referendum on Europe, then we just immediately lose places like Hartlepool and Redcar and Burnley and wherever, Blackburn. The truth is, they're going to lose a lot of those seats anyway. And the idea that they can win those seats on look, we made the NHS slightly better and immigration is slightly down, and no one's going to care in those places. They're going to go, my life is still shit. I voted for you in 2024 to make my life less shit. It isn't. So you can go for a walk. I'm voting for reform. That's what's going to happen. And everybody who actually knows anything about politics knows this. That's why Starmer needs to get, the Liberals He needs them. He needs them badly. The soft lefty types, the people who voted Lib Dem last time, largely, he needs to get those people. Because if he doesn't get those people, I think he's going to lose the next election very, very, very badly. And the only way I can see him doing it is the EU route, the pro-EU route. That's where the people who will naturally vote for him next time will reside. That's what they will do. But look, they won't vote Labour without that. They'll vote Green or Corbyn or Lib Dem. They won't vote Labour. But I think they'll realize that too late. And hey, I'm a pessimist, and everybody says that I'm a downer and I only complain about things. And that's true, because I think that Farage is the only one in British politics who knows what he's doing at the moment. And it actually has a clear plan and a strategy on how to win the next election. Which isn't to say Farage doesn't have loads of weaknesses. He really does. But he's got a plan that I understand. He's got a strategy that I understand. No one else does. And I think Labour are going to go into the next election thinking they can win the same way they did last time. Anyway, I want to keep this short, tight. If you watch this far, please like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. These things help a lot. I'm Nick Tyrone, neoliberal centrist dad. And yeah, Starmer should support the EU, but he won't. All right, bye-bye.